Guys, today we're going to work on direct object nouns and pronouns. We're going to learn how to use those, how to identify them, and then, of course, use them in a sentence. Specifically, learn how to identify the direct object noun, convert it into a pronoun, and then where to put it in the sentence. So that's what we're going to do today. That's the game plan. What I wanted to do is sort of a scaffolding approach to this. And so what I want to do is look at the English, identify the direct object noun in English, translate the sentence into Spanish, and then again take that Spanish direct object noun, turn it into a pronoun, and then we'll put it back in the sentence. And so that's what the green ones are. And so I'll get to what the pronouns are in just a bit, but I want to run through the English. And then again, we'll talk about pronoun placement when we get to essentially these green sentences. So the black sentences are the English. The blue ones are essentially the direct translation of that English version. And then the green is going to be the blue sentence minus the noun and replaced with a pronoun. And so let's see what we got here. So we have 6 examples. I'll explain this asterisk in a little bit. But so the first one is I eat the apples, right? And as you can see here, apples are the direct object noun. Now, why? What makes it the direct object noun? Well, it is what is directly affected by the verb. It is what is being eaten, right? And so eat is the verb. What it is that is being eaten are the apples, and so therefore apples become your direct object noun. And so that's eventually what we're going to convert into a pronoun, because that's sort of how it works, right? It goes from I eat the apples to I eat it, right? And so that is going to be what the green sentences are going to teach us. And so as far as the Spanish version, we have yo como las manzanas. So that's just a translated version of the English, I eat the apples. And so I want to run through all the English ones first, and then we'll come through and translate them, and then we'll sort of swing back through and look at changing the noun to a pronoun and placing it. So we're going to run through the English first just to see what we're working with here, and then like I said, we'll come back. So number 2, Sam drinks the coffee, right? And I have here in red the coffee as a direct object noun. Well, why? The verb is drink, so this is what is being drunk, right? And so Sam drinks the coffee. So the coffee is receiving the action of the verb, which is to drink, right? And so that's really how we identify the direct object noun. So just sort of moving ahead a little bit, the indirect object noun would be what is, of course, indirectly receiving all of that. And so, for example, not to digress too much, but as an example, if I said, I give the money to Franco, for example. So if I said, I give the money to Franco, what is being given is money. To whom, or for whom in some cases, but in this case, to whom is the money being given? That becomes the indirect object pronoun, and that'll be a different lesson. But so that gives you an idea of what, how all this is working, and how the indirect and direct objects will sort of work cohesively, right? But we'll get to that in a different lesson. So again, Sam drinks the coffee. The coffee is our direct object noun, right? That's what DON stands for, if you were wondering. So number 3 here we have you read the books. So this is what is being, the books are the direct object noun because it is what is being read, right? And so here's our verb to read, and then what is being read are the books. So that gives us our direct object noun. And then number 4, we are going to buy the car. Now, I did this one on purpose because, as you can see, most of these are pretty basic. I mean, this isn't, too terribly extravagant, but it adds an extra component that I want to look at later when we talk about over here, pronoun placement. So we have the concept of ir más a más infinitivo, or ir, the verb ir, plus a plus infinitive. And so I integrated that into here, as you'll see. And so we are going to buy the car. Now we're talking about something that's going to happen in the future. So, but nevertheless, the car is what is being bought, or will be bought for that matter. But it is what is receiving the action of the verb being to buy. So that's our direct object noun there. And we have number 5 here. They are watching the game. And so with that, we have, well, again, mixing it up a little bit, we have the use of a stud with the gerund, which is the present progressive, which is one of the past lessons we did. But nevertheless, thought I'd toss that in there just again to look at how to use pronouns with gerund. So that's going to be, we'll get to that in a second. So they are watching the game. Again, the verb is to watch. What is being watched? Well, the game is being watched. So I don't know if you can read that, but there it is. So that's the direct object noun. Now moving over here, this one's interesting because for the most part, especially when we get to the Spanish version and using a direct object noun, I'll just go ahead and say, like, it's very rarely said this way, so it's very much out of context. But what I wanted to accomplish with this is to show you that, while over here we have a bunch of inanimate objects, if you will, right? Just different nouns like apples and coffee and books and things like that. But what I wanted to show you is that people, or human beings, or in this case, me, right, can also be direct object nouns. And so I didn't want you to think that it was just sort of these objects over here, because it can be a person too, of course. Okay, good. So over here we have, you invite me to the party. Now that sounds great in English, but we'll have a look at it here in a minute in Spanish, and I'll try to explain why really this way isn't said very often. In fact, you just sort of jump into the pronoun itself because it's already understood. But we'll get to that in a second. Before we run through here, I want to pause. Well, not pause. I just want to redirect you over here, just so I can put these direct object pronouns sort of in your head, so you kind of are already thinking about them when we come back here, so I can reference them, right? And so the direct object pronouns, again, they're the thing about Spanish is, especially you can see it here, like it has to agree with number and gender. And so that's going to separate, of course, direct from indirect object pronouns, which again, like I said, we'll get to on a different lesson. But notice here you have lo and la, and then of course here you have los and las. Those correspond to masculine and feminine, and of course singular and plural nouns. And so again, we'll talk about that when we get back over here. But the pronouns themselves are me, te, lo, la, nos. Of course, vosotros is os, los and las. And so we have me, te, lo. Again, as I said, highlighting this is masculine singular, right? That's what the M is and the S is. And then, of course, la being F for feminine and singular. And then nos, of course, representing. You'll see it used in the sentence. Its noun equivalent, if you will, would be nosotros. And you'll see it sort of attached with that A, that personal A, or in the case of the indirect object nouns, it'll be effectively like a prepositional phrase, like sort of bonding it to the sentence in a way. Same goes for me, or me, sorry, which is of course your equivalent for it's Joe, it's first person singular, and then you have ati for te, right? So these are in effect the noun, the direct object noun that you might find in the sentence, and then if you were to convert it into a pronoun, it becomes this, it becomes this, it becomes these. And again, just for fun, I guess, since we've used those, you would, if you were to see them using the third person subject pronouns in a sentence, you would see it as a él, of course you got the accent there, a ella, a usted, and then over here you have ellos, a ellas, a ustedes. So that's if you were to happen to see the subject pronouns being used as nouns, right? And so just thought I'd bring your attention to that. Let's come on back over here. So we have yo como las manzanas. That's just essentially the Spanish version of this sentence right here. And so I eat the manzanas, las manzanas. And so again, the direct object noun is not going to change. So we have this is our direct object noun. Now, I'm going to sort of bounce back and forth so we can look at these, but I'm going to come over here and so that we understand what we're doing as we walk through the rest of this, right? I want you to see the pronoun placement. So let's check out how we place the pronouns, right? So that way we can sort of work through all of this. There's 4 places really, and I have a question mark here because, and I'll tell you what it is, but it's because it's not necessarily relevant to this placement. The 4th place is actually attached to an affirmative command, which we don't have any of those up here, but that's what that question mark is hiding, if you will. So it's representing that affirmative command, like escúchenme, right? Escúchenme, right? So that me being a pronoun gets attached. So, but of course, that's not up here. So I figured we would just hide that one. Why not? So, all right, so let's get back to that. So pronoun placement, we have 3 places with regards to, at least for direct object nouns and pronouns, indirect object, well, pronouns in general. So these are, while you will see these resurface in other videos, they're universal. So it's just where pronouns are placed, period, right? And these are our options. And again, that's why I said you have the 4th one here. But, so before a conjugated verb, and I'm going to bring you to these 1 through 3 are examples of that. So before a conjugated verb, and I'm also going to show you when we get down here that there's another way of doing it above and beyond before a conjugated verb. But we'll get to that when we get to 4 and 5. So, but again, before a conjugated verb. So, anyways, just to go back to what I was saying, essentially 1 through 6 are examples of that. Now, again, 4 and 5, I'll show you how to do it a different way, which will show you how to use these. And so, so before a conjugated verb, so here's our example. We've acknowledged that las manzanas is the direct object noun, and so we want to convert that noun into a pronoun. And so, las being a feminine plural noun, right? We come over here. Here's our feminine plural noun, pronoun for the noun, and so las is what we're going to use, and that's why you see right here yo las como, because remember, we're going to put it before the conjugated verb. Now it's going to go between the subject pronoun, or the subject, if you will, yo, I, and the conjugated verb. Now that's for folks that speak English. I know that's a little challenging because you're used to saying, for example, I eat them, right? Because that's your translation. I eat them, right? And the them comes on the backside. And so, whereas in Spanish, and at least with these examples, before a conjugated verb, it's going to go before the verb. So it's going to look a little odd for you all in terms of how you're used to using a pronoun in English. But it's okay. We're going to practice, and you'll get used to it. So, número dos, Sam drinks the coffee. Let's break on into the Spanish translation. So we have Sam bebe el café. Or, of course, there's another way of saying drink. So Sam toma el café. You can use either one, beber or tomar. Now, beber has a much more limited scope in terms of its use, whereas tomar has a wider range of how that verb is used. But nevertheless, they both mean to drink. So we have here, Sam bebe or toma el café. And so we're gonna erase that really quickly to avoid confusion. And so we have here, Sam lo bebe. And to bring your attention here to café, it's a masculine singular noun. It's a masculine singular direct object noun, to be more specific. And if we come on over here, we'll see that its equivalent as a pronoun is lo. So that's why we chose lo for that. And again, here's our subject, here's our conjugated verb, and we squeeze that right in between. So that's why it's Sam lo bebe. Let's move on to number 3. Tu lees los libros, or you read the books. Again, we've got a plural here, a plural direct object noun, right? But it's masculine plural. And so what's our option for masculine plural? Well, we come on over here, masculine plural, los, and then we come on back to our sentence, and I'm going to fix where I had that written incorrectly. So we have tu los lees. So again, we have our subject, conjugated verb, to, of course, agree with to, and then we have los. So tu los lees. So hope that makes sense. All right, and so moving on down to number 4 is where we're going to get to actually this one. And so we have, we are going to buy the car, right? Becomes nosotros vamos, right? Nosotros vamos, that's the conjugation of ir. Nosotros vamos a comprar el coche. Now there's a whole host of different ways you can say car. We just opted for coche here. You can say carro, you can say auto. There's a whole host of different ways, but for this example, we decided we like coche apparently. So we have nosotros lo vamos a comprar. Again, we are opting, well, first of all, el coche is masculine singular, right? Which is why we chose lo, right? Fits right there, lo. And again, our rule, this is going to be option A, and then we'll have option B, right? Let's use a different marker for that. So option B is going to be placing it in a different spot. And so anyways, let's look at this option A first. So we have nosotros lo vamos a comprar. That falls in line with this. So vamos is conjugated. We have our subject, and then lo, of course, representing el coche. We fit it right in between subject and conjugated verb. So that works. The other way to do this is to, as we have here, number 3, attach to an infinitive. And so either way is fine. You just pick which way feels most comfortable to you. Now I will add that this next way I'm going to show you, option B if you will, falls closer in line with your English, and so it fits better, right? And so that might be your option, at least as you're trying to learn this, but know that it's said both ways. And so, but anyways, just putting that out there. So option B, for example, will be nosotros vamos a comprar, right? And then we attach lo at the end. So we say nosotros vamos a comprarlo. All one word, right? And so comprarlo, I'm going to write it here so you can actually read it. Right? Comprarlo. And so even though we're adding this to it, we don't have to add an accent. We would only add an accent if it were a double object pronoun. And so we'll get to that hopefully in a different video. But comprarlo, so that would be all one word. So to bring you back down to letter B here, nosotros vamos a comprarlo. And again, if you can't read that, it's right there. And so that's one word. Number 5 is a use of the gerund, which was the part of the present progressive, or this is an example of the present progressive, which is something we just learned as well. And of course, we have a different video for that one. But we have, they are watching the game. And so, ellas están mirando, or viendo, if you want, el partido. And so I wrote this one over here. I'm going to call this option A just to stay consistent. But ellas lo, again, subject, conjugated verb, and then el partido being the noun, the direct object noun. And so that becomes lo because it's masculine singular. So hopefully at this point, this is, if it's sounding repetitive, that's good. That means you're learning. So So then we have ellas lo están mirando or viendo. And again, I'm just going to erase this one off the bat just to, again, avoid some confusion. And so we have that as option A. I'm going to write option B above it. I know that probably doesn't make a lot of sense, but for space, let's do it. So we have ellas lo están mirando. Now our other option over here, as you can see, is attached. Just like this one was attached, this one is attached. And so it's attached to the gerund. That's your yendo and ando, or in English, your ing. So again, this next way, this attached way, fits closer to what you're used to saying in English. So again, if you want to go with that one, that's your call too. But know that both are said. And so we have here, ellas están mirándolo. Now, with ellas están mirándolo, notice that we attached it. The difference between attaching it to the infinitive is that with it being a gerund, we have to give it an accent. And I'm going to write it up here so you can see it as well. So, right? Mirándolo. And you can hear it when you say it too. So, ellas están mirándolo. Mirándolo. Now, so you'll notice that as far as where you place the accent, there's a couple of different ways to do that. If it's a single object pronoun, and again, this is a rule of thumb. This isn't across the board universally, because as you all very well know at this point, there's plenty that break our rules. But as a rule of thumb, right, you can count back 3 if it's a single object pronoun, right? A double object pronoun would be, for example, we're just going to make up a different one, mandando se la, which is completely out of context, but just to give you an example of what a double object pronoun looks like, it's that se and la added to the end of the sentence. And so in that case, you'd actually count back 4. But it's probably easier to remember that you would, if you attach a pronoun, it goes over the A of the ando or the E of the iendo. That's probably an easier way to remember it. But if you want to do some math and all that stuff and count backwards and do all that, that's up to you too. And so just know that there are cases where that won't work. But nevertheless, as a rule of thumb, you're probably good to go for the most part. So, so this is, these are some examples. Let's do number 6. Again, just to address the sort of the weirdness of this. For you native speakers, if you're watching that, you're like, we never say that. Well, I agree, but let's just show you how to use how a mí converts into me. And so we have, usted invita a mí a la fiesta. And again, just to reiterate, this sounds weird, right? Because you just don't have to do that, right? We convert a noun into a pronoun, it becomes a pronoun after we sort of understood what the noun is. And so because a mí or a ti or a nosotros is pretty much a given anyways, you don't have to go through the quote-unquote stage, if you will, of making it a noun and then converting to pronoun. You can just sort of jump right to pronoun because you know what may is, so it's kind of easy, right? Anyways, let's just look at it in a sentence. It's right here. Usted me invita a la fiesta. So we've got usted, right? Third person singular as a subject. Usted me invita, right? That's agreeing with that. A la fiesta. So you invite me to the party. And so again, I saved that one for last because I know it looked a little awkward. But again, the point of using that as an example is to show you that people or me or you or we or whatever can also be a noun, a direct object noun. So hopefully this made some sense. Right? This is looks like a beautiful drawing at this point with all these amazing colors. So anyways, here are direct object nouns and pronouns, and hopefully this was helpful to you guys.